Good evening, ladies and people. Not sure if we have any gentlemen on this conversation tonight. I want to welcome you to our Critical Conversations with the International Human Trafficking Institute. My name is DeAndre Marshall, and I'm the Director of Training for the Institute. And we want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. For those of you who know me, you know that I like to get started on time, and it is straight up 7:01. And it's time to start this conversation with these two brilliant minds that we have joining us tonight. Our conversation is a little bit different tonight than some of the others that we've had, but in discussion with staff, we decided that it would be a good idea to begin to bring those who work in the field to this conversation and to talk about what they are seeing with our young people in the midst of the pandemic. Which is very important because it's critical that we understand what we can do as a community to assist not only our guests tonight, but also those who work in the field with our young people. We say that there's been a 106% uptick in our kids who are vulnerable being contacted online. And now that they're back in school, this gives another avenue for predators and traffickers to engage our young people. And so we just wanted to have this conversation tonight. And I'm so excited to have Zoe Webb with us, as well as Star Davis, who joins us. And I am not going to actually do an official introduction of them. We're going to have a period where they're going to share who they are and the work that they do. I see that we have Diana here with us. Thanks, Diana, for joining us. Diana joins us from the Atlanta CASA, and then we have two other guests that are in the space with us tonight. And thank you all both for joining us. I see Faith joining us right now, and I think that's Salome and Allison. Allison, I am going to have to send you a t-shirt. She was early. I mean, she was right here waiting for me when I came into the room. And so Allison, if I've not sent you one already, I am going to send you an IHTI t-shirt. So we're going to go ahead, like I say, and get started in talking about this critical conversation about our young people. And before we begin, we're going to play a 4-minute clip that I found interesting. And this is young people themselves talking about how they are handling their own mental health, amongst other things during the pandemic. So if you will share that now, let's just take a listen.
I'd say 6 months ago that I was pretty much a typical teenager.
I had this anxiety and stress of school.
Stress between school and extracurricular activities.
My mental health was better than it had been in a long time.
I was pretty happy most of the time.
I was just waiting to hear back from colleges, very excited. But,
COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
The coronavirus is a pandemic. Many schools around the world, as you know, have shut down.
It's going to have a huge impact.
Right now, with the coronavirus and quarantine and everything, I'd say I've kind of retreated to a more isolated version of myself.
I definitely feel a little more frustrated and sad.
You start to worry about your future, and you start to worry about, am I ever going to see my friends again?
I'd say especially in the months right before the virus, I was really branching out at my new school and making connections, but I do feel as if I've fallen back.
Just really not knowing how things are going to turn out, and just rethinking your future and your life, and it really took a toll on me.
What's been worrying me the most during the pandemic has been getting sick, or my family members getting sick.
I'm very, concerned about being a carrier of the virus or bringing it home or spreading it between people by going out.
When you're isolated by yourself, you're really just alone with your thoughts.
I've never said this before, but I miss school. I'm worried that it's just going to extend longer and longer, the closure.
I definitely know a lot of people who are struggling with depression and anxiety.
Especially, I think, for transgender people, I've been hearing from my friends, looking at your own body image in like a camera or listening to your voice, especially for people that haven't made transitions yet, is very dysphoria producing.
I do have some friends that suffer from some mental health issues, and they do seem a lot more down now because of the virus.
I also have a friend who has some family troubles, and I feel like her stress has been amplified now that, like, with quarantine and stuff like that, not being able to see her also makes it worse because we can't really talk about it, and I can't really comfort her the way I would be able to if we see each other face to face.
I do think that it's possible that technology does play a role in the fact that my generation is more likely to suffer from mental health issues.
My, 15 years old and younger self was very much influenced by social media and seeing people live their perfect lives.
I feel like sometimes that might make people seem like, oh, that person has like a wonderful life.
I think social media can absolutely help build connections between kids.
I constantly message friends, I see their posts, I like their posts. I like to keep up with what they're doing, especially now in a time where I'm not with them every day like I would be in school.
I have family members from other countries, so it's helpful to talk to them.
Technology is just evolving in our day-to-day life now, Zoom and social media, and I'm very grateful for that.
I would tell a person younger than me who's struggling with a mental health issue like anxiety that even if it feels safer to keep to yourself, to ask for help.
Take a little break off of social media because it does have a lot of sensitive content on there.
This isn't the end of the world. You're gonna get through this.
Even creating a vision board of what you want to do 5 years from now, will really motivate you to think more about the future and think more about the possibilities in the future.
I think that the best way to go through anything is to talk it through and just, it's always better when you have someone to hold.
So thank you so much for taking the time to watch that with us. Hopefully, not only did they highlight some of the issues that they are having, but also maybe there's some takeaways for any of you who are working with young people. Hey, Allison, some great takeaways. That vision board piece that I heard them talk about is good. 5 years from now, prayerfully, we'll be out of the pandemic. And for those young people who are vulnerable, definitely to look at what their lives could look like and the things that they could be doing. So we're going to transition now, and we're going to get our guests to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about who they are, the work that they do, and maybe even what led them to do the work that they do. So we'll start first with Star, and give us an introduction, ma'am.
Thank you. Well, first, thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. And I just thank everyone who's here. My first name is Shavantane Davis. Davis is my last name, and I always have to tell people because people are always like, well, where does Star come from? And so my full name is Shavantane Margie Morning Star Davis. That's a mouthful. I know, right? Yes, 30 letters long. And my granddaddy, he was Native American. And so he told my mom that if she named me that, I would never want for anything. And it's so funny because I'm like, you should have just named me Star, because they've called me Star ever since I was born, my entire family. And so I'm the founder and executive of the Star Institute. And the Star Institute doesn't come from my name. It comes from my belief that I believe that we all have a light inside of us. And if given the opportunity, that we can all shine. So just really quick about me, I was born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. All of my immediate family is still there. And my life changed at 7. At 7 is when the molestation began for me by 2 of my older male cousins. And that's also when my mom became addicted to drugs. But by the grace of God, she's been clean now for 13 years, and she is one of the biggest supporters of the Star Institute. But when I was a child, the only person that I confided in about my abuse was my best friend, and she was a child too. And I asked her to keep my secret, and she did. And there are just some secrets that aren't meant to be kept, and no child should have to go through those things. So I kind of bounced around from house to house from different family members until the summer before the 6th grade. I started living with my grandmother, and then I lived with grandma until I graduated from high school. And so it was my grandmother who was that person who showed me that it only takes one person to love you, to support you, to hold you accountable, and to show up. And so essentially the Star Institute is my way of being to the youth what my grandmother was to me. So that is the me and the Star Institute in a nutshell.
Okay, Star, so can you just tell us a little bit about your work with the Institute, some of the things that you are involved in doing?
Okay, so what we do is we educate, engage, and empower youth in the community about child sexual abuse and exploitation. By profession, my background, I'm a criminal defense attorney. I was a public defender in Fulton County for a little over 5 years. And so what we do is we have a couple of different workshops. We have 4 of them. We have a sex trafficking awareness and safety 101 workshop, which I was really able to build from my own lived experience, from working with survivors of sex trafficking, from representing women and children who were victims and survivors of sex trafficking. And really like telling people like how this works in real life, right? And what we're really seeing. So we have that workshop. Our age demographic is 12 to 17 years old. All of our workshops are relevant, age appropriate, culturally appropriate. And then we have a goal setting workshop. We also have a self-esteem and internet safety. And we started out with those because it all kind of builds up. And unfortunately, technology is a gift and a curse. And so we have to have these real conversations. We have to talk about body autonomy. We have to talk about using the proper anatomical terms and really just having conversations with children on their level and just not thinking, oh, they don't, they're too young. They're not too young. And I just kind of equate it to a fire drill. A fire is a real imminent threat. And we teach our children how to respond, what to do, and who to call. And it should be the same thing with their bodies.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. And everyone that's here tonight agrees with you regarding teaching our kids at an early age. If you don't, this is something that you can definitely walk away from this conversation knowing that that's something that we need to do. It's deeply about young people
And
and the work
DeAndre,
she
you
does.
froze on us a little bit. You might have to repeat what you said. You froze on us a little bit.
Oh, did I? Okay, I'm sorry. I was just telling you guys my background and knowing Star and the work that we have done together and the work that we're doing now in the Survivors Council with IHTI and 4 other organizations through the Novo Foundation grant that we received. And so we're going to turn now and talk a little bit to Zoe Webb. She's my new friend, you guys. I was looking for an organization to partner with to come to this critical conversation to share with us what she's seeing or what their organization is seeing and working with young people in the community. I'd heard of Stand Up for Kids and because of the work that I've done in the past, but I thought it was a great opportunity for us to begin to work together. And so I'm just pleased to welcome Zoe to the platform tonight. Zoe, will you share a little bit about who you are, the work you've done, and what you're doing now at Stand Up for Kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel really honored to be here. Thank you for having me. And also, I just want to say, Star, I've been thinking a lot about you and the story that you tell about your life ever since we spoke earlier. And I think that that's really what makes a difference between activists and care workers is being really, really intentional in where you're coming from and knowing why you do what you do. And it really inspires me. And
Thank you.
yeah, and I think that, I'm quite young, and I feel like I'm still in the process of, or I'm sort of still in the midst of a lot of the things that are making me who I am. And so I hope to someday be able to articulate my story in a similar way. But I can say that when I started doing work with youth, I was a youth. I would go to the Lost and Found drop-in center, and I would bring food, and I would eat with the other people that came to eat there. And it was really my way of finding a community. I felt really different from all the people that were around me when I was in high school and afterwards. And it was, I was privileged in a way that a lot of these kids never were or couldn't be. But we had shared a lot of similar experiences and a lot of similar traumas, and we had similar fears, and we're making similar choices about our lives. So I come to this work with the knowledge that I am really no different from a lot of the people that I'm working with at all. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I am now working at Stand Up for Kids, and at Stand Up we have two programs. We have a mentoring program and a street outreach program. And our mentoring program works with kids in high school who are experiencing some kind of homelessness or housing insecurity. And it matches them with an adult from their community who can help them set and reach their personal and academic goals. Our street outreach program is more of a harm reduction model. We work with people 24 and younger that are experiencing any kind of housing instability, but mostly these people are unaccompanied. So they're not living with their family, or they're in and out of their family's houses, but mostly they're on their own. And I am the Associate Director of Mentoring for South Fulton County, and I am now the Associate Director of Street Outreach. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so you guys can understand now why we invited the two of them to come and be our guests tonight to talk about what they are seeing as they do the work that they do. I definitely want to turn back to you and just ask you about citing maybe some of the things, the challenges that you're seeing with young people who are vulnerable, or maybe at the tip end of being vulnerable, maybe not at that point yet. I know when we were doing the work over at Tri-Cities, not Tri-Cities, it was the school over in South Fulton, the high school. We were working with the girls over at South Fulton.
Banneker.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
My schools.
Yeah. So the thing is, so the thing that we know is that there's a clear intersection between girls who are contacted and are engaged in human exploitation, who are also attending school. So they have two jobs, and we know this to be true. But can you just tell us some of the challenges in working with the young people that you work with, that they are facing in the midst of the pandemic? What are some of the things? I mean, we heard the kids talk about some of the things that they're going through, but can you tell us some other things that you've seen with the young people you've been working with?
Well, COVID has really just intensified all of the different issues that the kids are already faced with. And so, as much as some kid might be at school being rambunctious as possible, they know, like, it's structure. Kids still need structure. They like a system, they know foundation. And so they're going to go to school. They're going to see that teacher, even if they never, engage with the teacher. They're going to see that teacher. They're going to have lunch. They're going to have their friends. And so those things are disrupted. So we're seeing that, unfortunately, some of the kids are at home with their abusers. So they have no recourse. They have nowhere to go. A lot of the kids, sometimes they don't have food. Sometimes our kids going to school is and so that's why it's so great that the schools are still providing, breakfast, lunch, to a lot of the kids, because some of them don't, they don't get to eat really when they're not at school. And just being able to have that support, right? To be able to have that support, be it a teacher, a coach, a mentor, being able to have that meaningful connection with someone. It might be somebody that they can confide in too, because you have to realize that not all of the youth identify as a victim. Some of them think that this is a choice that they are making on their own, but they still want to be able to talk about it in their way. And you have to meet them, where they are. And so I had a client one time in juvenile court, and I asked her, so we're going over the police report, and I asked her, so, how do you know this man that's referenced in the police report? And she said, I know him from when I used to sell pee. She said it just like that, just like the sky was blue, right? But that is her existence, right? That is what, and so you have to just make sure that you meet them where they are. When you're building that rapport, it's a lot of listening. It's a lot of really understanding what it is that they say that they need. They need resources. That might be a bus pass, that might be a job. It's the things that they need, and you can't take away the fact that, because I've had clients that they're 15, but they're taking care of their siblings, and so it's like, don't minimize what they're doing as you're trying to help them, right? Just understand where they are, and then allow them, right? Because you have to build that relationship, because that's another thing, there sometimes people are in and out of their lives. So I tell people, like, when you're going to start being in this work, like, it has to be a true commitment, right? Because then they start to look for you, right? And if you're not there, then you're just like everybody else, so those are some of the things that we have been seeing.
Okay. And Zoe, I know you guys are doing this work weekly. So since March, April, what are some of the things that that you all have seen, and the work that you've done with some of your young people?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Star touched on some things that are really, really important. I feel like, when kids can't go to school, a lot of them are losing the one place where they're allowed to be a kid. At home, they're expected to, take care of their younger siblings, work, help their parents out, be the parent. Maybe they live alone, and they have to be an adult when they're at home, or when they're out on the street, you don't even feel like a person when you're out on the street. So, yeah, I think that it can be a real problem. And there's also, the kind of self-evident fact that kids don't motivate, regulate in the same way that adults do. A lot of them haven't developed that skill yet. So this sort of almost self-paced schooling is really doesn't work for a lot of neurodivergent kids, and a lot of really regular kids it also doesn't work for. So suffering in school is sort of a byproduct of that. But there's also a way in which sleep has a lot to do with it. A lot of teenagers don't sleep, but a lot of my kids have been getting night jobs. So they'll go to work at like 8 p.m. and they'll get off at 7 a.m. and then they'll do school from their bed. And then they fall asleep like almost 24 hours later, and they feel sick and they feel unmotivated. And, those aren't just, that's not them, that's the lack of sleep. That's them not being able, or not in a place where they can take care of their bodies. And, sleep is really important. And, and also the jobs that a lot of these kids are able to access, and this has always been the case, but they're not always safe, and they're not always honest, in that, like, they might not be paid what they were told they were going to be paid. And this is another form of exploitation that really we see at a lot higher rates than sexual exploitation. Wage theft is a really big thing for youth experiencing homelessness, or youth in general, because they're taken advantage of, and it's assumed that they are not expecting proper treatment. But yeah, those are some of the things that are popping out to me right now.
Yeah, so that's the okay, Diana, hold on a second. I'm just gonna make this
Okay.
one word. And the exploitation that Zoe was talking about is the labor exploitation that happens with our kids that are under the age of 18, that we talk about in regards to what is happening in metropolitan areas. So yeah, I do want, we have a small group tonight, and for me, small means intimate. So Diana, definitely, I think you maybe wanted to chime in.
I did. When Zoe was talking, she said something about neurodivergent. Is that the term you use?
Neurodivergent. Yeah. So that's another way of saying that your neural pathways don't work the same way as other people.
No.
So
okay, it kind of went out when you went neurodivergent. Yeah. Okay, I get it.
All right, it's like people that like have ADHD, or even like depression, or dyslexia, any kind of. Yeah.
No, I thought I heard neo. That's why I was asking for clarification on the rest. Okay, thank you.
You probably actually heard me hesitate slightly, because I was like, am I saying this right? But yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Diana, for the clarification. So did anyone else want to chime in before we go to our next area of questions for our guests tonight? If you have anything that you'd like to share, we definitely like to hear from you. All right.
I think I have just more questions than anything to say. Yeah.
Okay, Allison, I'm listening. We're listening.
Oh, I mean, whenever you're ready for questions, I'm open to.
Oh, okay. Okay. We'll come to the end. Okay. So I know in the midst of this, everything has been dreary for a lot of us. A lot of adults have had definite challenges with what has been happening since the pandemic hit. I mean, you hear every day, if you watch the news, you hear them have psychologists and psychiatrists on, and they just talk about different things. They have yoga coaches on sometimes and teaching, individuals, breathing techniques and things that they can do. But in the midst of all of this with our youth, I want to just ask you guys, maybe, can you give me a couple of things that you offer to these young people to talk about hope in the midst of this situation? I know for some kids who are in a situation where they may not have the technology, they may not have access to the technology like the other kids, because, that was a connection that they made, that they can always use their technology and talk to their friends. But maybe some kids don't have that technology. So what are the ways that you offer them hope in the midst of what seems like a hopeless situation? I can encourage, how do you encourage them in the midst of what's going on?
Well, I'll go first. We have a partnership with the Georgia Center of Child Advocacy. And so I work with the Envision Project. And basically these are all girls 14 to 17 who have been confirmed as survivors of sex trafficking, and they are living in residential placements throughout the metro area. And so sometimes Maggie is one of the therapists, and she does art therapy with the girls. And it is so good. Like, you know, one of the girls, of course, we do vision boards, but this art therapy, she has this activity that we do. And like, they have the canvas and you have like blue tape, like you're about to paint, right? And then she has them write out like words, like, so what are some things that people might say? So, you know me, I'm like, well, people might say I'm stubborn, right? And so you write that. And then the word that you're going to, you know, cover it up with is leader. You know what I'm saying? And so they do those, that like we do like art therapy. We've done that with actual canvases. We've done it with rocks. You have to get creative with these activities, because not only, I mean, everybody is a little with the Zoom fatigue, okay? As we're on Zoom right now. But, you know, just trying to make some fun things. And then it's like, you know, sometimes they are down, because it's just like, you have to think about milestones, right? And so some things that people are taking for granted. So like, so some of the kids are graduating, and that's a milestone to be able to walk across that stage, especially when you think about if you're the first person in your family to graduate from high school, you know? So really being intentional about celebrating them in the ways that we can. And then just really understanding that, listen, this is part of it. And, you know, I'm very transparent with any youth that I work with. And I'm like, listen, there are hard times, which is why we say shine where you are, because you're going to have to learn how to shine at any place in your life. And there's going to be peaks and valleys, you know? So really doing that. And then sometimes, girl, I got to make them get up, shake, wiggle, wiggle. Come on, we need to do a little dance. We need to put a little music on. And just, you know, anything that you can do to try to, you know, uplift their spirits, but just always trying to find, you know, I'm always like, I'm a glass half full type of person. So it's like, listen, if you say you're trying to do something, whatever it is, you're trying to go to the military. Okay, well, we got to use this time to plot it out. How are you going to do it when the world opens up? What will you have been able to check off to make it that much more easier for you to make your goal? And just really, you know, telling them like, it's not going to be like this always. There's going to be bad times, you know, and reminding them that they are strong because they've already overcome so much as is. So you've done it before, so you can do it again.
Right. That's awesome. I think those are good tips for you guys to take away and put in your tool belt if you're working with young people, or if you have young people in your households. Those are really good tips. Zoe, you want to share a couple of things that you all are doing at Stand Up for Kids with young people who find themselves down and depressed? How are you lifting their spirits there?
Yeah, I feel like Star already touched on this, but I mean, our big mission is consistency. So we've been doing the same thing with the same people at the same places for like 16 years, especially with our street outreach team. You know, our faces are familiar, and if you need to be found, we're going to find you, especially with our school kids. You know, like when COVID hit, we had the opportunity to stop and we didn't. And that meant something, you know, to our kids. And it really, I mean, I have a mentor match that's an older man and a younger girl, and they get along really well. I mean, we facilitate everything. I know that makes everybody nervous. That makes me nervous, but you know, we're sitting in a Zoom call together and they don't have anything in common, right? But the fact that he shows up every single time, that means so much to her. He wrote her like a note on her birthday that said, "You're doing really well. Congratulations. At least we know you like corn muffins." And then signed his name. She mentions that every single time we talk. I'm like, wow, you could really do the least. But if you keep doing it, like that means so much. And you know, that's what we try to embody in everything that we do. So we we don't always have access to like activities or things like that. It's harder for us to organize those these days for a group of people, but you know, I check in with my kids once a week. Even if I can't find them, I'm gonna call you. If you don't pick up, I'm like, okay, I'll call you next week, you know, and I'm gonna call you every week. I'm gonna make sure that you're found and that you, if you need something, we're here for it. So yeah, I feel like that's through everything, consistency has been what has made us strongest, and it continues to make our work strong.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I have found that that is so true with working with young people. The consistency means so much, and a lot of times you don't even have to talk. If you're there to listen, they appreciate that you know that you showed up. That's the biggest piece. So I think that's so interesting what you said about the gentleman and the young lady, to that they have nothing in common. And sometimes it's like that. But just to be a human being and know that someone else cares about you. And I imagine that at the space where you all host the kids, that they know that that's a safe space.
Yeah.
And they don't have a lot of safe spaces. And so just to have a safe space to come to means a lot to them. So listen, we are coming to not a close, but to a comma where we are going to stop. And those of you who are here tonight, if you want to ask questions of either Star or Zoe before we close out, I wanted to do that before we give them an opportunity to just share ways that you all might be able to assist not only them, but other organizations who do the same type of work. We know that there's a lot of work to be done. And so we'll give you an opportunity to ask questions. I think Allison had a question that she wanted to ask, or maybe a comment, and then Diana will come to you. Allison.
Sorry, Diana. I am honestly, my questions, I have so many. We work with trafficked children constantly. That's a regular occurring thing, and unfortunately in the Fulton County Family Court. And I actually have one of my missing children right here. But it's a lot. And I know, Star, with your experience and being able to help those children, I feel super unprepared sometimes, especially when they are already in the mix of the game, right? And we're trying to help them understand that they're still children at the same time as they've already experienced adult lifestyles. That how do you navigate that? So when I first met this child, she seemed like a 12-year-old little girl. And then when next time I saw her, she looked like a 21-year-old woman. And it was a dichotomy of one day she wants to be a child and one day she wants to be an adult. And how do we navigate that? And how do we read those signs of when she was in a treatment facility, a residential facility, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she met some other girls and then ran, and now she's missing. And how do we know when those signs are about to trigger a child to run? And how do we navigate bringing them back in, but not treating them like they're children? Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And oh, that's so loaded and it's so good. And the first thing I'm gonna tell you is you don't. Honestly, you don't. And it just goes back to what Zoe said about that consistency. So as long as, because what people don't realize is in the cycle of, rehabilitation for trafficking victims or survivors is relapse. So sometimes they go back into the life, right? That's a real part of it.
So it's a similar cycle to like domestic violence and sex and
Yes. So it's a real thing. So it is a real thing. And you have to, most places, especially when they go into like residential placements, that's why there's usually this like a waiting period. Sometimes like the one girl may be separate from the others because maybe the girls have been in there consistently and they're working the plan. Sometimes when they come straight in, they're still fresh off of that. I need to be out in the life. I need to be doing what I need to do. I need to be making my money. I need my hair done. I need my nails done. I'm not trying to hear what y'all are trying to say, right? And so every person is different. Some people are accepting it, and this is what they've been wanting. I don't want to be in that space. So you just have to continue to show up. Sometimes they do run, right? And then sometimes they come back, and sometimes they run from one place and then they end up at another place, and you'll see them, So you just have to, because I will tell you the worst thing that I just really strongly cannot stand when people do this. And I get it, because there's a real thing about burnout, and you are heavily invested in this. Like you don't just get to lay this down, right? And so, but one person one time was like, I said, yeah, she said she's together this time. She's gonna get it. And she was like, yeah, I've heard that before, da 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 da. And I'm like, even if you're thinking that should never come across to that child, but it has, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of similar to, when you're in juvenile court and they're like, they need to sit down. What does sit down mean? They need to go to jail? No. These are children, right? And it's underlining issues, right? Children, I always say this, is that, they didn't ask to be here. It's someone's responsibility to take care of them. That means feed them, love them, clothe them, teach them how to be productive citizens. And unfortunately, sometimes it's us, right? And so if you are stepping into that role, just be like what Zoe said, be consistent, okay? Keep giving them the options, because you know what? One day they're going to be like, okay, you know what? Miss Allison, keep talking this. Let me just try it out. And then they surprise themselves. You know what I'm saying? And then it becomes, not only is it at first, it's, well, Miss Allison, I got to do this for Miss Allison, because Miss Allison is going to be upset if I don't do this, right? And so it's just making sure you're there and you're rooting them along. And sometimes when they fall down, it's okay. It's okay. We all make mistakes, but just being there for them. But there's no handbook to that. You just, it's going to happen. It's part of the cycle.
Right. And I think, I guess maybe I want to add here, Allison, also, because it is the work that you're doing, that to not beat yourself up when situations and circumstances happen, and not to shoulder any type of blame for that, because you're giving all that you can give. And you have to know that you've done all that you can do. And if they reappear, to just not be judgmental. And it's like, okay, let's start this over again, because there's something about the psyche that draws them out of being in a consistent way to being in the life. And a lot of times I like to say it like my mama used to say, a lot of times they think the grass is greener on the other side. And it may take, some of them longer than it takes others to actually get it. I used to work at Angela's house. I don't know if you know what Angela's house is, but it was a group home for girls who had been previously arrested as prostitutes. And this was 20 years ago, y'all. So this is 19 years too long. But those girls who would, come to this house, and it was way down in South Fulton, down where they thought, at that time they were calling them pimps and not traffickers, but they were thinking that they could not get to them. But it's just some way that these girls were able to slip off, and they would run, and they would, get, it was like country. When I would go, and if I stayed too long in the evening, when I would leave, the street lights would be on, and it was pitch black out there. It would be no way that I would run, but it's just something in them that says, it's like an itch that they have to scratch. And it's not until the itch stops, and it's, and we do as much as we can. But definitely just be, as Zoe said, just be consistent, stay firm, in your work, and it will all, and it may not be that one, but it may be another one that you will have impressed upon them that, this is not what you want to do. This is not the life you want to live. So there's some.
Miss Marshall, I think that's so interesting, because I'm a domestic violence survivor, and it's almost identical. Like you have to, the person that you feel controlled by is outweighing everybody else on the outside. And so it's up to us on the outside to kind of tilt the scales.
Yeah.
So it sounds very similar.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
And a lot of them are victims of domestic violence. It's like they got so much stuff going on, so you just have to always extend them some grace and extend yourself some grace, because you're doing the best that you can do. And it's almost kind of like with an addict, right?
Mhm.
Until they recognize that they have an issue and that they want to get better, then nothing is going to happen until that time.
Right, absolutely. So was there anyone else who wanted to chime in here? And I see some folk who are not, I get it, who are not on, but if you want to unmute yourself and come on and ask a question, that would be great. Diana?
Yes, I was just going to ask, how do you all kind of recruit your base, the people that you work with? How do you reach them, I guess?
Like, are you saying that?
And I know Star said she has a partnership at the school, and so you do the homeless youth, but how would people find out more about you, about your organizations to really partner with you?
Listen, y'all, they're conspiring against me. They disabled my Instagram account the other day. I don't know why. I am appealing them because we don't have any inappropriate content, but we're at the Star Institute with 2 R's, the Star Institute on Facebook, Instagram, because I'm believing that we're gonna get our page back. Our website is thestarinstitute.org, and then LinkedIn, Shavantene Star Davis.
So put that in the chat, Star, so anyone who's looking to reach out to you can do that as well. Zoe, if you'll do that, put it in the chat. And how do you all recruit the people who assist you all, Zoe, like the mentors that work with you? How do you recruit them?
It really depends. I mean, we've been around a while. We have a word of mouth is powerful, especially, I mean, we're a national organization. So if you search homelessness or youth or something like that on Google, there's a chance we're going to show up. So, or even like mentoring. So a lot of people find us just by Googling, or they find us by, going into those like volunteer search apps. But I mean, we're pretty privileged in having that kind of, visibility. We also partner with local organizations like the Hateful Exchange or Rotary clubs or HBCU student groups and stuff like that to bring in people that want to work with us. We've brought people in through Georgia State University. Really, we'll take anybody. But, yeah.
That's great. That's great. Thank you guys so much for giving that information. So I see there's some things in the chat. Okay. Okay, Diana is saying that Allison is also with Atlanta Casa. I knew that name sounded familiar. Hi, Faye. Thank you for.
Hi.
So
I was laying on my couch. I didn't want to seem really unprofessional. I had a quick question for Zoe. You really struck me when you were talking about the teenage kids that would go to work at 7 or 8 p.m. I'm just floored that this is happening. And I just kind of wanted a little more information on like what kind of jobs they're working and then how in the heck like they can be promised a certain wage and then not get it. And then are you guys also involved in the legal side of that in getting them those proper wages? So just a little more expounding on any of that, because that's something really new to me.
That's a great question. And it's something we're still grappling with because it's a really like under-researched kind of conversation. But the kinds of jobs that these kids are getting are usually warehouse work, or I have a kid that delivers bread in a truck from a from like a plant. It sounds even like shady to me, right? I might not get the whole details, all the details from them, but yeah, it's work that is low barrier. So yeah, and factory work too. So things like that. We are not involved in the legal side. There aren't a whole lot of resources. And it also gets complicated if youth are hired under false pretenses. So if they've lied about their age, or if they were brought in by their cousin, but they didn't really sign any documentation, they're being paid under like that makes them more vulnerable, right? Like all of these things, all of these things sort of stack up to make it impossible for them to ask for help and to get justice. So if they they start work and they work for 4 weeks and they were supposed to be paid 2 weeks in and they still haven't been paid, they have two options, right? They can quit, or they can, try and do something about it. Mm-hmm. Like 99 out of 100 times they quit, right? Mm-hmm. And we're not really in a place where we can offer that kind of legal advice. Mm-hmm. So it's really sticky and it's really complicated, and it's something that happens over and over and over again, yeah. And something that we're still figuring out how to manage in a practical way, instead of like an empathetic way of like, let me help you find something different, instead of being like, let's fix this thing that's already happening. So it's something we're working on.
So yeah, let me add to that, Zoe, because that's along the lines of the education that we do with the Institute, and that's called labor trafficking. And a lot of times you hear about it with adults, but people rarely talk about it with our young people who are being recruited for jobs. A lot like what Zoe talks about is they find them on Craigslist, different places, relatives, turn them on to them. And the other thing about that is, in the midst of the pandemic, a lot of kids' parents aren't working. And if a kid is feeling that heavy, a single parent home especially, and they're thinking that they can help their mom out by going and getting a job, then yes, that's what they will do. And oftentimes, like Zoe said, they get into a situation and it turns out not to be what, they thought it was. And a lot of times they do quit those jobs. So, it's about being hired underage. That's against labor laws, child labor laws. Working hours they shouldn't be working. That's another child, it's all a part of labor trafficking. And then a lot of times you have employers who will bully kids. And especially then they won't tell another adult, they won't tell anybody, it's just, I had a job and now I don't have a job. And some of those jobs that they're doing, they're not legitimate. They may say that they're delivering bread, but it's drugs in the bags that they're delivering instead of bread. Yeah, so, they have them, they're in a, a difficult situation, but the kid doesn't know, because they're just trying to make money. They're just trying to make ends meet. So yeah, all of that falls under the line of labor trafficking of kids. It's something that happens here in Atlanta, and people don't really talk about it, but it's here, and in rural areas also. So those are some of the things that we talk about in our trainings. So speaking of trainings, I just want to let you guys know that we do offer our trainings. You can find it online at www.ihtinstitute.org. We do those trainings for regular trainings, and for just the general population to learn, see, do, where you learn something, you see something, and then we are asking you to do something. And that do can be as little as changing your own consumer habits to, joining us as an ambassador. So that's the plug for IHTI. Next week, I just want to announce before we leave you that we will host another critical conversation, but this time we're actually going to be talking to individuals from law enforcement about what they are seeing with our young people. So we'll have a lieutenant joining us from Paulding County, and we are working now to get someone from Cobb County, because we are working in those counties as far as training those communities. So definitely want to invite you back next Thursday at 7. And just stay tuned to us. Go on our website, check it out. We have something there called the Wall of Shame. There's my coworker Jen Booth is on here right now, and Jen put up the Wall of Shame as well as redesigned our whole website. But the Wall of Shame is a place where you can see the faces of men and women who have been traffickers and exploiters of our kids. I get probably 2 or 3 articles each week from all over the Metro Atlanta, but also all over the country of people who are yes doing this in the midst of the pandemic. So definitely check out our website. And I just want to once again thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. This will probably be put up on our website for you to go back and take a look at if you'd like, or to recommend it to others. I want to thank our guests again, Star Davis and Zoe Webb, for joining us. Appreciate you guys so much for sharing your information. And for those of you who chimed in tonight, I am appreciative of your presence, and I hope that you have learned something or heard something that you can put in your toolbox to take away with you. Allison, if you will put in the chat box your email address, I want to send you something to help with the work that you're doing. So definitely. Star, you have something coming up soon. What's that?
Oh, yes, guys. Our 3rd annual Rediscover Your Light 5K. It's our big fundraiser, and we're virtual this year. It's a run or walk, okay? That there's no shame in that walk. And so because it's virtual this year, we're trying to be COVID friendly. Registration is $20. Everyone will receive, everyone who registers will receive a The Star Institute face mask. And you have the whole week, November 9th through the 14th. You do it any way you like, on your treadmill, in your neighborhood. I'm telling people, listen, I don't care if you don't do anything. Snap the picture for us and tag us, okay? Because your donation is going to go far. So check it out. Please share with your networks. I need to go get the thing. Oh, I put our website on there. You can go to the events tab there, and you'll be able to sign up. But yes, please, and share. COVID can't stop awareness. That's the hashtag.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. Zoe, do you all have anything coming up that you want to share?
Yeah, we have like a holiday campaign coming up. We're actually going to have, I think, a yoga class that's donation based. I know we're getting real healthy over here, but with our 5K and our yoga class. But yeah, check us out on Facebook. You can find us, Stand Up for Kids Atlanta, or our website, and you'll see what's coming up for us.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And so thank you guys so much. I appreciate it all. I appreciate everyone for being here tonight. We have an ambassador on here tonight. Erica Smith is on here, one of our trainers. So definitely thank you all for joining us. Please tune in next Thursday at 7 and hear additional information about critical conversations with law enforcement, with their assistance with our vulnerable kids. All righty, you guys, it's 8 o'clock straight up. Start on time, end on time. I love it. Y'all take care. Be safe. Be well.
Thank you all. It was nice meeting you all.
Good to meet you all too. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
All righty.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.